This is Environmental Psychology Unit 4, Part 1, which I call Real Intelligent Design, Designing Smart Environments for Smart Environmentalists. Now, my academic work, what I'm known for, is work on categorization, and that's the process by which objects are recognized, differentiated, and understood. Like, for instance, here we have on one side apples and on the other side oranges. And it's useful for us to be able to discriminate which is which. Now, of course, I put in, just for humor's sake, the image in the middle, which is from a book called Freakonomics, where on the outside it looks like an apple, but on the inside it's an orange. But that's more of a Photoshop trick. In reality, though, categorization is fundamental to language prediction, inference, decision-making, and our interactions with the external world. Just imagine a world without categories, and you're living in a world in which you cannot differentiate cats from dogs, houses from cars, or anything from anything else. Categories are fundamental. Now, most categorization research looks a bit like this. This is actually something that I'm working on right now, and it's a mathematical model of how memory works and how categories affect our memory. And in other words, it's a bit abstract. This is not the kind of thing that I would assign for students to have to read. But what I want to talk about today is a different kind of project that I did that has to do with categorization in the real world. So it's a far more simpler project, and it has to do with recycling. So the premise is that we tend to believe that categorization is endogenous to thinkers, that it happens inside the head. But factors that are exogenous or outside of thinkers can influence categorization as well. So here's a sculpture. If you've never been to the Rodin Museum in Philadelphia, it's worth giving it a visit. It's right on the Ben Franklin Parkway, and that's where I took this photograph. So humans, we design and build objects and environments in which we interact and live. And the idea is that some objects that we design and live with afford, and that's a special word in psychology because it means encourage in a certain way, smart categorization. So certain objects make us faster and more accurate. Other objects and environments are poorly designed and afford either random or unintelligent categorization. So they make us slower and less accurate. So an example that I'd like to give is typewriters. Typewriters, when they first were invented, didn't have the same kind of keyboard that they do today. So this is a modern keyboard. It's called a QWERTY keyboard because of the QWERTY that you see at the top. And there is a specific reason why these letters are on a keyboard in the way in which they are. It's a vestige from a prior time. Because in reality, this keyboard aims to slow you down. It makes you not type as quickly, and there's a reason for that. Old typewriters, the ones in which these were originally invented for, they used hammers, and these hammers would punch a ribbon that had ink on it onto the page, and that's how typing worked. But the problem was that people got so fast at typing with the old way in which the alphabet was normally arranged that the keys would often jam. So this, and many of you probably don't remember this because you probably have never typed on a typewriter, but growing up I actually had to take typing classes, I'm that old, where then this would happen, where keys would occasionally run into each other, and that would slow you down because you'd have to unjam the keys. So a man named Christopher Sholes is actually responsible for the QWERTY keyboard that you use today. And what he did was he figured out what letters often are typed together and made them go on different rows. So if you look at the keyboard and you see T and H, TH is very common in English going together. But you see they're on separate rows. They're on separate rows so they'd be further away from each other, so they're less likely to jam each other. And so what he did is a systematic study of language and found what sort of are the likely letters to go together versus ones that are less likely to go together, and made them so that they would be on separate locations on the keyboard. Now this had the effect of slowing people down typing, but that was the point, is that by slowing people down, you wouldn't have jams that would slow them down even further and even worse. So here's a keyboard, and you can see the T and the H are separate, as are A, P, and A. I mean, there's lots of words that use part or, so having them in separate places was good and allowed it to jam less commonly. Now, the problem is that it slows you down. And so people, even though people can type ridiculously fast, 500, 600 words per minute, in reality, people could type much quicker if they didn't have to use a keyboard like this. So here's another picture just to demonstrate. Another example are rumble strips. Rumble strips are divots that are in a roadway. And what they do is, I'm sure that you've all experienced it, when you drive along a highway and you sort of go off onto the side, you hit these sort of divots in the ground, and they make this rumbling sound that alerts you that you're going off the road. Now, interestingly, it actually was the Garden State Parkway in New Jersey that was the first highway in America to install rumble strips. And it's a really good idea because, and this is what they look like. They just look like these little divots in the ground. It costs nothing to make these. There's actually just a roller that, they put on a steamroller that just imprints these into the ground. It's not like this costs much to make. It's a very inexpensive solution to an expensive problem. Because here is the data. This is actually from Pennsylvania, not New Jersey, but close enough. In 1986, a driver falling asleep or being inattentive was the cause of 57% of accidents, as opposed to speeding or all other causes. So in reality, the vast majority of accidents are because drivers either fell asleep or, you're searching for a phone or something else that's in your bag, and you go off the highway and you go flying into the tree or something. And that can be very hazardous. People can die. So another name for these rumble strips are SNAPs, Sonic Nap Alert Pattern. And they're designed to be a specific frequency that is particularly jarring when you hear it. So it doesn't let you lull yourself into sleep. It really does wake you up. And once Pennsylvania installed this, they had a decrease from 51. What it means, the accidents per month on 31 miles of roadway segments went from 0.51 to 0.16. So when you think about it, that's a decrease of about 1/3. Actually, it's more of a decrease of about a fifth. But, it's a large decrement in the amount of accidents that you saw because of the fact that these very inexpensive divots were put into the roadway. But the example I like the most is medicine bottles, because it's very important that people take the right medicine, because it's a very simple categorization task. You open up your medicine cabinet, and there might be several bottles in there. Choosing the right one that you have to take is a really important thing to be able to know how to do. But there can be problems. The first is cluttered cabinets. A lot of people don't throw away their old medicine, and so you have cabinets that are full of bottles that probably expired years ago, but they're not there to, cure whatever illness that you have at the moment. Lousy labels. Look at this label from an actual prescription. When you ask people to determine what drug it is that this person's taking, it takes almost 10 seconds for people to actually figure out where and what the drug is, which is clozapine here. But the point is that there's lots of information on this bottle that is unnecessary. And when you think about it, this little label, which is big right on your screen, is tiny when it's put onto a bottle. So finding the right information can often be hard, especially if you have elderly eyes. Older people have trouble seeing. They need reading glasses, and, myself included. So, your eyes just aren't able to focus as well as they were when you're in your 20s. So just expect that, young people in this class. So people with elderly eyes have a harder time being able to read this to begin with. So someone did a study where they looked at the number of errors they asked people to sort of find a drug that they are supposed to take. They're given a prescription. They're supposed to take this drug. And the question is do they get it right or do they get it wrong? And so this data shows that 14% of the time with regular labels, people get it wrong. They choose the wrong drug. And just think about that. One in every, more than every 10. So, that's a lot of mistakes. And given that certain drugs can have really massive effects on, say, blood pressure or heart rate or any of a number of important systolic functions that your body has to maintain, that can be really deadly, particularly if your body is older and you have problems already with your health. So in walks an art graduate student, and I love this because we normally think that arts are not the most important discipline for science and technology, but this is an argument for why there should be um, art involved in these kinds of questions of design. And Deborah Adler had a grandmother that took the wrong medicine, and she had to go to the hospital, and it cost many thousands of dollars because of the amount of treatment that had to go on and the ambulance and everything. And so what she thought is that, maybe what needs to happen is to design a better pill bottle. So she went to Target, and she asked if they would be interested in, having a new designed pill bottle, and they said yes. And so she designed this. This is a newly designed medicine bottle, and what it has on it is it's very easy for older hands to be able to use and open, but when you look at this, the moment you look at it, you can see what the drug is, amoxicillin. It screams it at you. And there's also a little card in the back that has patient information. But one of the neat things about this bottle is that there's rings, colored rings, that go on the bottom of the bottle, like where you see right there. And the idea is this, is that different members of the family get assigned different colors. So that if you open up your drug cabinet and you see a bunch of pill bottles in there and you see that one's, yellow, and you know that that's yours, then you pick that one as opposed to picking one that's purple or blue. So it's an easy identification system that is very easy for the eyes and was developed by this art student. Now, in a follow-up study, when they used the new bottles, the percent error was now 1%. So it decreased errors by a massive percentage, something like 90% reduction there. And that's simply by changing the nature of the label in the bottle. And that's pretty striking. So a small change in the way manufacturers label medicine bottles can improve correct categorization by 92%, which is a massive effect. And lives may be saved, and millions of dollars of unnecessary emergency treatment for taking the wrong medicine can be saved. So what I think, though, from all of this is that art grad student Deborah Adler saved lives through a simple insight on intelligent design.